Hi everybody, welcome to Chapter 10 in the Fullan textbook, which is Developing and Sustaining School Leaders. So this chapter is really going to look at some of the stuff that we've already alluded to, which was the New Orleans work. Scott Bauer, who's a faculty member at George Mason University, who I've worked with on our journal, really looked at Hurricane Katrina pre and post and how New Orleans schools were affected by it. I believe in Scott's work. I'm biased. I love this chapter, but it's because it's somebody that I know, and I know the good stuff that he's doing. But I think you need to understand the context to better understand the work. So Louisiana, in most cases, is dead last in education, dead last. Depending on the survey, you could say that Alabama and Mississippi are below it, but almost all reports say that the Louisiana system is the worst in the United States. So in theory, if we're going to improve a system, there's a lot to improve, right? I mean, we could improve a lot in Louisiana because there's a lot that needs to be improved. So other facts, Louisiana is consistently lowest or second lowest in math in the United States. They're middle of the pack in reading. I couldn't find out why, but I thought that was interesting. They're lowest or second lowest in math, but middle of the pack in reading. Principal salary is average with the United States average, and teacher salary is among the lowest in the United States. So right there, if you're of the belief that teacher salary makes a difference, which I do believe that teacher salary makes a difference, then you would understand why I would say this could potentially be a problem with schools in Louisiana. So the link that I'm going to present for you pretty much says it all. Let me see how it opens up and what it looks like. So when Hurricane Katrina hit on August 29th, 2005, New Orleans' 124 public schools had already opened for the 2005-2006 year. 117 were under the Orleans Parish School Board, including one charter. 5 had been taken over by the district. Now, there are 83 schools. 76 of those schools are charter schools. The transition has been significant. 8 out of 24, 76 out of 83 have changed. So there have been different superintendents, different school board presidents. But that's certainly something to be concerned about. If you look at it in terms of school reform, there was something else on here that I wanted to show. I'm sure in the face-to-face version I'll show it, but just going over just the different statistics, and remind you, this is 10 years ago. Of course, you don't want a meeting for the Choctaw Conference Center, maybe you do. It's all new, apparently. But this is the change. 124 public, 8 charter, post-Katrina, 83 public, 76 charter. It's an unintended, intended consequence. And you'll hear me use that term multiple times, but it's an unintended, intended consequence. So when a school system fails, the federal government jumps in. Nothing I say is going to change that argument. It's the truth, and we've all heard it a million times. The federal system bails out. That's what they're there to do, but they bail out failing school districts. But there was such a massive recovery on the physical standpoint in New Orleans that federal intervention was needed. It's the only major city in the United States with equal representation of charter to public, and it's nearly equal. So it's a good system to study and look at and see what works. So what happened was they created an organization. With federal funding, they created the Greater New Orleans School Leadership Center. And they wanted to do a 6-year evaluation on sustaining school principals. They wanted to see what went well, what didn't. Teachers and principals and students had complete confidence and complete freedom to say what they wanted, which was important. But then they assessed the schools based on their academic gains and found out why those gains existed. The goal was to maintain principals. So the goal was they wanted principals that wanted to stay principals. We've talked in this class a lot about principals using the principalship as a long-term trajectory. The research is there, the argument is there for that. This basically showed that the people they wanted selected were people that said, I'm committing and I want to be a school principal. So, you've already heard me say this, but I'll say it again. Professional development for principals stinks. If you want to change our education system, do strong professional development for principals. It is a big, big, big idea. Teachers get professional development. It might not be good professional development, but at least they get some internally or external. Superintendents get external professional development because they pay to go to conferences. Principals are the ones in the end that are the ones that end up suffering. Don't forget that and don't get that out of your mind. So the SLC was designed to do professional development for principals. It was going to give them leadership skills specifically for New Orleans. Any professional development is good. Even if it's one that's just, for the culture and demographics of New Orleans, it's principal professional development, so it's good. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. So there were 10 lessons about how to develop and sustain leadership across organizations. So here are the 10 lessons as we normally do. I'll give you a minute to read them, and then we'll talk about each one of them. So take a few minutes and read the first 5. Next 5. So number 1, this is a Fullan textbook, so the breakthrough, dramatic change, you're going to see that this happens. Principals realizing that they don't have to do everything themselves was the big finding in the dramatic change. If a principal realizes that and that they can use it to make significant changes and impact at the school level, it can change the principal or change the building. That's huge. Little things matter, but they can make a significant change. It's how well that principal knows that culture, that organization, and that environment that lets them able to do it. If you have one good learning experience, it can start you on the right track for learning. Principal professional development is limited, so we have to make sure that when we give it to principals, it reels them in and it keeps them engaged. If they had a good experience, they can give it back to their teaching staff, and the same can be said about teachers as well. If you let your teachers share the professional development, this can be a good thing. In order for there to be an increase in student learning, there has to be ongoing support. You have to keep going with professional development. If it's all about reform and achievement, you need to talk about things that aren't reform and achievement. Ways to make a class fun, ways to do group work, coping strategies, social strategies. If you have somebody from the outside provide support, it's good, especially in these large urban districts. But try to make sure that not everything is completely tied to achievement. Everybody has to be involved in the training, whether that means that the principal shares it with their teaching staff or the principal invites 1 or 2 teachers to share it. This is that notion of shared leadership. And if you can show your principals that they're going to be mattered by going to this development and then give them the autonomy to give it to their teachers, everybody wins. So when you have to do data-driven decision-making, it's important. It's critical in the current policy environment. Basically, nobody says how to analyze test scores. I found this interesting because Oklahoma State doesn't make us do this. Every single graduate student and undergraduate student at Edinburgh, they had to do data-driven decision-making, and I taught the course. Our master's program and our bachelor's program do not do a data-driven decision-making class. So you have to give professional development so that principals know how to understand and target data and how it can be used for school improvement. You have to make sure that you're nice and you practice what you preach. For a place like Louisiana, that is a rough environment, rough urban school, rough context, and it takes a special type of person that can actually manage a school like that. Some people can, some can't. There are some of you in this classroom that never could, and some of you that would love that. I myself would never do one of these, would never do a large urban school. I couldn't. So the teachers experience the same struggles the principals do, so the principals have to be nice to the teachers because they're on the front lines, they're the ones that see it. So it's imperative that the principals know that that's going on as well. Little bits of money actually do go a long way, and I think that's another thing that you have to stress. If you get a small pittance that can be given for school improvement, for more teaching supplies, more materials, it's there to help the school, but it can go a long way if you know what you're doing with it and you know how to use it. Good principals know how to manage their school finances, and you've heard me say that a lot if you've taken a school finance class. You have to build a community of leaders. You have to build people internally that want to stay, teachers that want to be there. You want to find principals that want to stay, that feel like they have support, and you want this to happen and you want this to occur. Everybody's there to support each other and learn from leadership experiences, and you form that network and you form that experience. The community of leaders should retain successful leaders. This is my idea of succession planning, which is my most important concept in all of education. Principals that have a network that can help others, where they've learned from others, they can help others be good principals. That's huge. If people don't feel they're supported or respected, they're going to look to get out as soon as they possibly can. And in my opinion, if you are not supported and you're not respected, there is nothing wrong with leaving a position, especially if it's something like being a building principal where there are lots of jobs that are open. Trying different leadership models is a good way to recruit new leaders. If your district is not an appealing district, try to find ways to make it appealing. Find ways that you can basically get in and help people internally become good leaders. Sometimes people don't want to come to your district, but if you're doing it right, people do want to come to your district. So that's something that you have to keep in mind as well. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and it looks right, it feels right, people are going to be more likely to want to come and be a part of your district. So the last section of the textbook is going to start focusing on district level leadership, which I think for some of you is going to end up being your favorite part of the course. If I can do anything to help, let me know, but we're moving on. We're moving to district level leadership. We've done a lot at the community level, a lot of research and a lot of building level. Now we're looking at district. So hope you got something out of this part of the class, and we're almost done with Fullan. Thank you.